Hello, fellow risk takers, and welcome to my worst investment ever. Stories of loss to keep you winning. In our community, we know that to win in investing, you must take risk, but to win big, you've got to reduce it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people reduce risk in their lives. And I want to thank my listeners in Arizona for joining today. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotts from A. Stotts Academy. And I'm here with featured guest, Mark Kohler. Mark, are you ready to join the mission?
I am ready. I am so excited to be here.
You look ready. Everything looks ready, and I'm excited to hear more from you. But let me just introduce you to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark is a highly respected founding and senior partner at KKOS Lawyers, specializing in tax, legal, wealth, estate, and asset protection planning. With a reputation as a YouTube personality, best-selling author, and national speaker, Mark is dedicated to guiding clients through the complex legal and financial landscapes to achieve the American dream. Mark, take a minute and tell us about the unique value you are bringing to this wonderful world.
Well, I am striving and I think I'm almost there, the most well-recognized and popular nerd in America. I am trying to be America's small business tax lawyer, helping Main Street business owners all over the country just better live their American dream, understand quality tax strategies. And what I've been on a mission to do is help accountants learn how to be better advisors to their clients. And I love saving money and I love helping accountants, and I'm going to change the accounting industry, and I'm already doing it, and it's affecting thousands and thousands of small business owners and investors all over.
And tell us more about the way you're communicating that between YouTube, podcast, books. Explain, how you're doing that.
You bet. Well, we have our law firm and trust company and some accounting services that we just help. I'm very proud of and an incredible team helping, again, small business owners and investors directly. In the last 2 years, I caught the vision of the training program I had implemented in my own firms. I'm training 10, 20, 30 CPAs and attorneys on a regular basis with turnover and their growth and experience, and out there on social media and YouTube helping small business owners. And I just realized, oh my gosh, I could really do a better job of helping other tax advisors that are really struggling. When you go to accounting school or get your C.P.A. exam or your enrolled agent exam or bar exam, I've done them all. You don't learn real street smart tax strategies. And the continuing education programs are so boring and difficult to extrapolate any sort of real world strategy. So I was on a mission to take my internal training system and create a certified tax advisor program for other advisors all over the country. We're pushing now over 600 members in just a year and a few months. It's grown like wildfire. And so we've created a tribe of accountants and enrolled agents, CPAs, financial advisors, lawyers that really want to make a difference on Main Street America. And I've got videos, weekly trainings, semi-annual workshop. It's just been such a fun experience. And that's my passion right now.
So how does it work? Like, for instance, is this like, I think about the typical accountant, and they know the foundations, they know the basics, but the tax and other things are changing all the time. And so they can't keep up with it. So they go into your course or your resources, or how does it work?
You bet. And I would, you think that, and I'm grateful you said that as a layperson. Well, the tax laws are constantly changing. You know what? There hasn't been a major tax law change since Donald Trump and the Congress passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act 6 years ago. I wrote a second edition of my tax and legal playbook once that happened. I'm waiting to do a third edition once we have another round of changes after this next presidential cycle. And there will be changes. So much of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act is phasing out. Mm-hmm. But the real problem is accountants get out of school and they're conservative by nature, and they learn from the old guy in the corner office all of the strategies that worked maybe 30 years ago. And because of their conservative approach to life, which is typical, I've been going to therapy for years to unwind my conservative nature. And so you have to somehow get out there and learn the strategies that really are cutting edge. And it's not that tax laws changed. It's that you've got to change with the case law and what's working and what's not, and being aggressive and getting on the same side of the table with your client, not across the table playing like you're an IRS watchdog. And so there, accountants really struggle with that, how to have a good quality relationship, communicate and be aggressive. And so that's my mission in life, and just changing one accountant at a time.
Accounting is an interesting area. I'm a chartered financial analyst. So CFA, meaning I'm focused on the financials. In fact, I always tell people, as a financial analyst, all I look at is from the audited financial statements up, and what's below the audited financial statements, I didn't, pay too much attention to as an analyst. But my business partner is an exceptional accountant. And we basically started about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, started a part of our business, which is what we call outsourced CFO. And we basically go in and fix the accounting of companies, and then we turn it over to, an accounting provider, a service provider, something that just find it really difficult sometimes to unravel these things. Whereas we go in, with a machete and chop it up. And, but what I've found is that actually, most mid-size family businesses, which is what I work with here in Thailand, most of them, their accounting is absolutely messed up. It's not closed, like it's closed annually. So they get sales data, they get some, basic stuff, but they don't have monthly financial statements. And I always tell people, my advice that I learned from this podcast, talking to many, many entrepreneurs, is if people ask me, what's your advice about a startup or your own business? So I only have one piece of advice: have on time and accurate monthly financial statements. If you can do that, you've overcome pretty much 95% of the hurdles related to, finance and accounting. And now your objective is to understand those financial statements and use them as a tool. But I'm just curious, what's the state of accounting in the US? Are most people just saying, just give me some basic stuff, or what is the state of it?
Well, it's funny, is your perspective, and what if we could talk about lanes on a highway, the lane you're in is not my lane. I love what you're saying, and I totally agree. Quality bookkeeping, accounting, and financial statements, analysis, making good management decisions from that information. Love it. And that is what an outsourced or in-house CFO would help a business owner do. And until they can afford one, they have to be their own CFO and make sense of it all. Where my lane is, and my tribe and community, is the 400,000 tax preparers. We're taking those financials at the end of the year going, all right, now we got to do an S Corp tax return, 1065s, Schedule C, Schedule E, Schedule F, your 1040, bring it all together, save taxes. And there's a second set of books. And that's not an illegal thing. That's not a weird thing. But you take those financial statements you're talking about, now you've got to turn around and clean them and adjust them for depreciation and amortization and off the books expenses. And, oh, I've got an expense over at Costco or on this debit card or this credit card, or I paid for this over here. And so the accountant can either just take it passively and just plug them in and kick it back out, which is extremely frustrating for the taxpayer because they're not having conversation. And we wonder why there's a rise in the software TurboTax, because business owners say, I'm just going to do it myself. No one's helping me. But if we have a real tax professional that says, hey, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's find some write-offs. What can we do? Could put kids on payroll? Are we writing off your auto properly? The home office deduction is alive and well. It's not a risk. Are we writing off travel? Do you have a board of directors of your own family members writing off electronics and supplies and equipment and everything at Best Buy and Apple Store? And so a good tax advisor is bringing that to bear with asset protection, privacy, good financial advice. And yes, it all starts with good quality bookkeeping and financial statements, but then you get into that tax lane and you got to meet with your tax advisor every year. So why not make it a really quality relationship? And so you can say I'm passionate about it, and that's my mission.
That's exciting, because I know for a lot of people that they just don't know much about it. They're doing well with their business. They've got, maybe a local person's helping them with it. Maybe they've got, somebody internally that's, they've studied up a little bit. But when you get exposure to someone that really knows, like, I guess someone from your community, it's like, boom, real impact that you can reduce taxes pretty quickly to make sure that you're getting, all the benefit. And the one thing I'd see about the U.S. tax code is, and let's say the U.S. tax situation is that it is incredibly complex compared to, let's say, Thailand. Thailand individual taxes are filed every year on one-page document.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's no capital gains tax.
Well, I would argue the complexity is a good thing. And here's why. When Steve Forbes back 15 years ago was arguing for one rate, and there was a lot of commentary, I was writing in the Wall Street Journal at the time about it. And it sounds great, but see, we motivate our citizenry with tax law. Put in handicap access, get a deduction, do something nice for the environment, get a credit. Oh, go give money to charity, get a deduction. Go hire this group, hire veterans, do this, college, Roth IRAs, 401ks. So we have crafted this complex system, I agree. But we accomplish things as a country. When Katrina hit, the hurricane down in Texas, approximately 10 to 15 years ago, the government couldn't even get water down to the Astrodome in 4 days. But what did they say? Let's pass a tax law that we can get bonus depreciation 100% for 3 years. And investors went in droves and rebuilt the state far faster than the government could ever done through tax legislation. And it's a really an amazing thing. And there's nothing about tax evasion or using tax strategy that's unethical. Just know the game. Don't hate the player. Just know the game. And you can exploit strategies that were built to motivate us. The government wants us to use these strategies. And white people think, oh, you shouldn't do that. Just pay your fair share. What planet are you on, for crying out loud? So I think the complexity is a blessing. Once you understand it, you can use it to your advantage.
So what's the best place for someone who needs what you have, and they like what you're saying? Where's the best place for them to engage with you?
Oh, thank you so much. Any of the social media platforms, Mark J as in Jolly, Kohler, Mark J. Kohler, and type any tax topic, any legal topic in Mark J. Kohler, boom, you're going to see all sorts of videos. I'm working on my gold play button. No accountant tax lawyer has more videos, podcast downloads, social media posts or articles than me with my credentials. And I am so grateful for the followers I have, and so fortunate to be making an impact and really on a trajectory to do far, far more. So just plug in my name somewhere on the web. You're going to find me. My website, Mark J. Kohler, is where you can start that certified tax program if you're just want to do it for yourself. I know you'll save money, or as an advisor, check it out.
Fantastic. Well, hats off to you for all the work you've done to bring that out to the world. I know it's a challenge. It takes time and all of that. So well done.
Thank you so much.
But now it's time to share your worst investment ever. And since no one goes into their worst investment thinking it will be, tell us a bit about the circumstances leading up to it, and then tell us your story.
All right. Well, I would define, and I think this is fair, you probably with 800 podcasts on this topic, which is so awesome. Thank you for what you're doing to help others not make the same mistakes others have. Let's do a little defining, and maybe that's because it's the lawyer in me. What is a worst investment? Is it you lost money? Is it that you lost time? Is it that it damaged a relationship? You got hurt physically, emotionally? So what may be worse for you out there, folks, maybe not even a punch in the gut for anyone else. No one, it may not, I don't care about that. So I think as you approach an investment, you want to, and I love how you said mitigate risk. You want to say, what are the risks to me? Like some people, this is my last $10,000 or $100,000. I cannot lose this. That's a big risk. For someone else, they're like, I don't care about that, but I don't have a lot of time to deal with this. And if it sucks up my time, that could be a huge loss for me. So we want to know what we have at risk, and it's not always money. So the story I want to share is about time. Is that all right?
That's perfect.
All right. So I think, what is it? The stats are that 60% of adult Americans have stayed in a short-term rental now, whether it's VRBO or Airbnb or just a little rental in your life. So most of you should know what I'm talking about when I say Airbnb, which is now worldwide. They're everywhere. So I'll just use the acronym Airbnb to mean short-term rental. So I own a couple of these, and I own long-term rentals and commercial rentals. I'm not a huge real estate tycoon. I recommend all my business owners to be deploying some of their profit into real estate. Wealthy people own real estate. So when you hear on this show, I want to warn all of you listeners, when you hear a nightmare story of buying real estate, that doesn't mean real estate's bad. It just means, hey, I got to be on my guard. I got to be careful. I got to be wise and smart. No matter what your freaking investment is, there's going to be risk. And it doesn't mean that that investment is bad. It just means, the universe worked against you on that one. Learn from it, pick it up, fall forward, and go out and kick some ass. Don't give up. So, sorry, I got all these little points. Anyway, so here's my story. So we buy, my partner and I, we go out and bought a couple Airbnbs. Now, this is actually a fairly recent story. I could have gone back in time and picked out something that was maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but this is so recent and it still stings a little. So maybe that's why it comes up. But it wasn't about money. It was about time. And so it's really interesting. We bought these two Airbnbs.
When you say Airbnbs, do you mean they were already on the market, or that you bought them for the purposes of renting them, and then you had to get them in the condition for that?
Great question. And I should pause a little bit for as moments here so you can really extrapolate the story points. I might brush over something. So we bought these two properties, I'll say in Arizona, and we needed to modify them and get them furnished and a little bit of rehab, put in a yard, and get them ready to Airbnb. So we got a steal, we thought, kind of a good deal on these two. And so we hoped in over a 2 to 3 month process, we were going to have these up and on the Airbnb platform and renting during the winter months of Phoenix, which is a great Airbnb season. So we dive into these two Airbnbs, and one of them, beautiful. It's simple, needs a yard, furnishings. I think I put in one smoke alarm. I mean, it was just the easiest little thing. We were really on our game when we bought it. We got it for a great price. And it's really come together beautifully. At the same time, 10 blocks away, not even 10, probably 10 blocks, we bought this other one. And I think we had beer goggles on or something. I don't know what was going on that day. We just saw it in a light. Maybe it was dark outside. And we thought, oh, this is great. And we put it on the same level as this other good one. And real quick into it, of just a few weeks, we realized, oh my gosh, this is going to take a ton of work. And the train had left the station. There was no turning back. And so the damage began. Mm. Now, you may say, well, the financial damage of improving this property, yeah, I don't buy that. I mean, I really think real estate is such a quality asset. We're going to get our money back. It's going to be maybe a longer trajectory, but we really added a lot of value to this property, but it was far more than we wanted to bite off and chew. And so we started to dive in. It was taking night after this night, that night. It created great social media content, but it just was a time sucker from day one. And we really there was one night where my partner, she's like, oh, this is terrible. And I'm lifting her spirits. Other nights, she's lifting my spirits. We're losing some weekend time. And so it really started to take a toll. But, okay, so that's the bad part. Yep. And I could continue with that. It took more months than expected and more money than expected. But really, the disaster of that investment was the time suckage. So now, should I give the silver lining? May I? Or do you want to make it? I can really make it ugly if you want.
No. I think that maybe just to update us kind of where things are at right now, just so we understand the trajectory. And then after that, maybe tell us the lessons that you learned and, what you got out of that.
You bet. Well, both properties are online now. Literally, no pun intended. And the good one, or I should say the simpler one, is we've locked in some midterm tenants, which is very powerful and a different strategy, especially in the off season in Arizona. If you can lock in a midterm, that's a good deal. So that's kind of a 3 to 4 month rental, and then we'll bounce over to weekly and daily rentals after that. The other one that was the time sucker it has been a shocker. It has literally been rented 90% of the time, of the days. So we'd say at least 20 to 25 days out of the month from the minute we put it online. And it was just a couple months ago. And we were going to go work on it this week on a Thursday evening and touch it up. And someone booked just a one night. And we're like, holy crap. And so we've just been really, really pleasantly surprised that it's renting as much as it is, especially when we're coming up on the summer months. It's already 100 degrees. But that was not expected. It's a blessing. And thank heavens, because we put a lot of money into it. So we're really pleased with that. And so from a financial standpoint, it has been turned out really well. From a time standpoint, I'm still licking my wounds. It really took me away. It took me away from a lot of other priorities. Some family. I have some grandchildren. It took me away from some work that was very pressing, that we were in the middle of some project development that needed my attention. It just got pushed to the side. There was a couple of events that I was going to speak at that I had to move around. It really took a toll. And then physically and emotionally, when it takes that much time, it's hard.
Right.
So I'm still licking my wounds a little bit with that point of view. However, here's the silver lining. And this is why my partner and I are so grateful. Unexpectedly, we didn't plan on this. We just called all of our kids who are in and around the area, adult children, and said, all hands on deck. We need your help. That's point number one. And the kids that had the time, there were some children that have families and day jobs. There's 7 kids between us. But the ones that could just dove right in. And my daughter, Molly, I want to give her a shout out. She was there daily doing painting and this and that. And not only did it bond our family closer together and children getting to know other children, Molly was learning skills. Other children were learning skills that they wouldn't have normally learned. And so, number one, there was a lot of family unity created. I think we celebrated the Super Bowl there. We've celebrated a baby shower there. It's just been a really neat situation we never expected. Number two, the kids are learning skills they wouldn't have learned otherwise. And third, it was a chance for us to be an example to our children that when you run into a situation that you didn't expect, you don't throw in the towel, you don't walk away. You can't sometimes hire someone else to do it. And you say, well, Mark, your time's worth more. Yeah, maybe not. Sometimes by the time you pay someone to take it to the level you want to take it to and resolve the problem, it gets even worse financially. And so we had several children be like, wow, at your age, I hope I don't look that old or sound that old, but when I'm successful in my career and all that, I was able to tell my kid, you don't walk away. You step up and you take care of what you committed to and you freaking do it. And if that means working until 3 a.m. on a Friday night and you're burning the midnight oil, you got to do it. Now, as I said, that was a very difficult thing to do. Time is very, very valuable to me, more than money. And it took a toll in a variety of ways. But I think when my kids run into a problem and I go, roll up your sleeves, they're like, ooh, and I'll say, see what I did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They can't complain. So anyway, I just felt it was a really neat learning experience in that way.
So maybe I'll share some of my takeaways. Let's call it an own goal. Like the problem we have in our life is that, and I think most people don't realize this until they get older, is that the majority of trouble that we face in our life is going to be caused by us. And yes, we have accidents and, other people, there are malicious things that can come out of the blue, but generally it's our decisions we have to overcome. And I have a lecture I do in ethics and I basically do an ethics in finance lecture, but I also then say, oh, by the way, I have a bonus lecture. It's a very short one. It's how to get out of trouble. And I basically tell people, you're going to get in trouble and it's going to be caused by you. So I have 4 A's. I say, first, you need to be aware, particularly in the world of finance, you need to be aware of the people around you, but everywhere people could be doing things that are bad or wrong. So first is aware. And then what you then need to do is when you've done something wrong, you need to basically admit it. And that can be to yourself. It doesn't have to be to somebody else. Just admit it to yourself as a first step.
So own it.
Yep. And
Okay.
the third one is when you're ready to throw away the wreckage of your past, you then apologize. So first you're aware, then you admit, then you apologize. And as I tell people in that lecture, I say, apologize is 6 words. I am sorry, I was wrong.
I
And
hate that.
then,
Can we skip that one?
yeah, exactly. That's the hard part. But of course, that's where the magic happens. Because even if somebody doesn't accept the apology, if you sincerely deliver a real apology, then you have cleared away the wreckage of your past. And the fourth one is really the hardest one, and that is amend. If you cause damage to another person because of this, you need to amend that and resolve it. Now, you may say, but Andrew, I don't have enough money, or, I caused so much damage. I said, what you need to do is go to that person and say, I'm going to pay you $100 a month, for the next, as long as it takes for me to be able to resolve it. And if you owe them 10,000 and you say, I can pay you $100 a month and I'm going to do that until I pay off the 10,000, you never know what can happen. You may make a lot more money and then all of a sudden resolving it is easier. You may also find that somebody really admires that you've really stood up, and so those are the 4 A's that I like to teach. And what I like about your story is that you admitted it. So you can't admit, you can't get help on something if you haven't admitted it. So by admitting it to your family and saying, we need help. So this is a little bit different than, what I was describing. But in this case, you admit it and you say, I need help. And when you ask for help, it's incredible what you get. And it's humbling because particularly as a parent, you don't want to, you want to have things together, but it's such a great thing for kids to see. And so those are my things that I always say about how to get out of trouble. But the most important thing that I wanted to get across was that we cause most of the trouble that we face in our lives. And therefore, if we've got a good system for dealing with it, such as being aware, admitting, apologizing, and amending, then we can leave that behind and have a happy life. So anyways, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to envision out of these 800 plus disaster investments, worst investment ever decisions. Let's think about the words again. The worst investment I ever made. Now, someone may show up, and I bet you've had a few people show up and go, oh, I did this investment and someone ripped me off. Or there was an act of God and I lost everything. Or the building fell down to the ground, or the burned down. Okay, that was not the worst investment you ever made. You made a good investment, and then something happened outside of your control in that situation. That doesn't mean, I would argue, that didn't mean you made a bad investment or that was your worst investment. The worst investment I ever made means you're owning a bad decision. And the investment that gone bad, whether it was money, time, financial, emotional heartache, whatever it was because you made a bad decision. That's your worst investment ever. If someone else causes the problem, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I hear there too, is that you take an ownership of what you're doing wrong. I don't know.
And in episode 601, Annie Duke talked about the concept of decision making and how the outcome of a decision doesn't necessarily mean that the decision was, let's say it's a bad outcome from a decision, it doesn't mean it was a bad decision. And so the process of making your decisions is what's critical, because sometimes you're going to have random outputs or outcomes that really, as long as your process was good and you keep improving your process, then you're progressing. So definitely, the point is that things happen in our lives, and there's things that we can't, but our response to what happens is what we're really talking about, particularly in your case. And that is, I think I want to just stop at this point and tell the audience from my perspective, look at Mark's story as a challenge to step up to the plate when you found yourself in a mess and admit it and ask for help and take step-by-step action to get out of it. That's my main takeaway.
Yeah.
So
I want to add kind of a life coaching twist to it. Is that, can I make one more comment
sure,
about it?
sure.
May I? Yeah. Is that what you just said is a huge part of it when disaster or whatever, this problem occurs, whatever that problem is, and you own it, you're aware of it, you admit it. Okay. I like your action item that you got to step up. You got to try to solve it. You're going to get in and work hard. You're not going to run away or stick your head in the sand. But I think there's another component a lot of us don't talk about, and that is, what's your mindset in that process? You could either be beating yourself up, feeling like a loser. Boy, was I dumb. Of shame, guilt. You don't want to share it because you're embarrassment. All of those feelings are your thoughts. They're unnecessary. When we make a mistake, we can, and I know it's hard, I was there, but that's how my partner and I lifted each other up as we said, hey, let's look at the good that's going on here. Mm-hmm. This was the right decision. This is what we were supposed to do. This was meant to be. How can we learn from this? Now, when you are pivoting in the face of a disaster or this bad investment, the first thing to do is give yourself some grace. And by the way, if you need an example of someone that's made some bad decisions, I'm here.
Yeah.
Start listening to the podcast. There's 800 episodes. You're not the only one. Holy crap. Quit beating yourself up. And so I think your mental approach to the problem is just as important as what you do to get out of the problem. Yep. You could lose years of your life beating yourself up, or you can go, you know what, this was meant to be, and look what I learned from it.
Great. So I think we really had a good masterclass on how to react when we get in a situation where it didn't work out. You know, it's not working out the way you thought. But now let's go back to the beginning and say, well, the purpose of what we want to try to do is help someone who's listening or viewing maybe not make that investment, even though they can learn a lot from it and it can teach them a lot. So based on what you learned from this story and what you continue to learn, let's go back to the day you walked in that place, the first day you saw it. What's one action that you'd recommend for our listeners to take to avoid suffering the same fate?
Well, hindsight's 2020. I would have done the same thing. The pain of that bad decision did not outweigh what I found to be the benefit. And I think many of you out there could say, that was my worst financial decision I ever made. But if you flip it around and go, well, what did you learn from it? And they go, wow, I learned a lot and it changed my life. And so would you trade that? Some of our worst decisions are our best decisions.
Those are the ones we learn from.
Yes. And so I don't know if I'd redo it. It was hard. I will say this. I would have probably made a few remodeling decisions differently. I could have saved a few times, a lot of time in the kitchen. But anyway.
Well, I guess if I think about it, that would probably be one of the things, is to make sure that you are realistic about the expenses that you're going to have to outlay to fix it up.
Yeah.
You know, and
I would say this too, is that what would I challenge a listener to do differently is recognize that it's not the end of the world. Give yourself some grace, look for the silver lining, and get to work.
Okay.
That's what I would challenge all of you to do. I don't know if I'd not do it over. I mean, I'd shop a little more at Home Depot versus Lowe's or vice versa, whatever. But the investment itself, I would have done it, and I'd do it again.
All right.
But it was hard.
What's a resource that you'd recommend, either of yours or any other resource that you have that you'd recommend for our listeners?
Well, since we're on the Airbnb theme, I'm going to give a shout out to Daniel Rustine. He is the preeminent author of the short-term rental rehab and rental strategy. He just had a new book come out. In fact, he texted me about 2 hours ago because I was asking him a question. I had him on my podcast, and it was phenomenal. But if you're in the Airbnb market, I'm not saying Airbnbs are bad. I'm not saying they're going to be perfect either. But Daniel Rustine's a great resource for any of you going into that market. He's traveling in Brazil right now. He's all over the world too. And then I'd say get over to my podcast as well, Main Street Business Podcast. I've got some great interviews there. I've got some lined up here in the near future that are just incredible. I'm at 400 episodes, and it's about Main Street business and investing, just practical takeaway strategies on a regular basis. I think some of you might find that helpful too.
Fantastic. Well, and Daniel is spelled Rusteen. And yes. I'll have a link to that, and especially a link to your show in the show notes. So last question, what is your number one goal for the next 12 months?
Business. I've got lots of goals. I've written down my 10-year plan, 5-year, and my 1-year plan. Sticking to business, number one goal is to really dial in the Main Street Business Tax Pro certification. We're working on the dashboard. We're working on some new key personnel, and we're having a great event coming up. It's going to be a great event in June in Salt Lake, and then Phoenix in December. I want to have 1,000 members by the end of the year. We're on track for that. And these are 1,000 business owners, tax professionals, legal and financial professionals that are looking for a common group of like-minded individuals and tribe, and I'm going to blow it up. And we're going to make a difference in the accounting, the tax professional accounting lane here in America, and it's going to be awesome.
Exciting. Well, listeners, there you have it. Another story of loss to keep you winning. Remember, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people reduce risk in their lives. As we conclude, Mark, I want to thank you again for joining our mission. And on behalf of AE Stotz Academy, I hereby award you alumni status for turning your worst investment ever into your best teaching moment. Don't try to refuse it. Do you have any parting words for our audience?
Don't give up, no matter what. There you go.
Boom. And that's a wrap on another great story to help us create, grow, and protect our wealth. Fellow risk takers, let's celebrate that today we added one more person to our mission to help 1 million people reduce risk in their lives. This is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotz, saying, I'll see you on the upside.